Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar this evening. We're so glad that you're here. This is our last webinar of the evening of the semester for Arts and Design. So my name is Lisa Wymore, and I'm the faculty advisor for Berkeley Arts and Design, which is part of the Discovery Initiative here at UC Berkeley. And welcome to tonight's event. It's a special one for me because I'm going to be speaking in the series tonight. So tonight our event is entitled Second Nature Embodying Our Technological Systems with Daiane Lopes de Silva and Weidong Yang, and my partner and collaborator, Sheldon Smith. The Monday speaker series is supported by the Office of Arts and Design, which connects and fortifies creative departments and units throughout the Berkeley campus. Funds for these talks are made possible by Arts and Design and by generous philanthropic donations. Unique to this speaker series is its connection to Humanities 20, which is a course offered here through the Division of Arts and Humanities. 50 students are enrolled in the class and attend the weekly talks. The semester's theme is Perseverance, Renewal, and Reflection. Welcome, students, and it's been really fun to have you in the series this year, so I hope you've enjoyed the talks. We're providing captioning for this event, and you can activate that at the bottom of the webinar window. Please let us know if you have any issues by posting in the chat, and we'll try to address those. For questions related to the talk, please post those in the Q&A feature also at the bottom. And we'll be getting to the Q&A in the last part of the evening. We're going to be doing presentations first, about 20 minutes each for each set of artists. And then we will be doing a discussion and then followed by the question and answers Q&A section. Before we begin, as I've been doing throughout this series, I want us to recognize that tonight's event is located in the territory of Huichin, the ancestral and unceded lands of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone peoples, and specifically the confederated villages of Lishan. The history of prolific artistic and technological development in this region has always depended on this land. Berkeley Arts and Design is committed to supporting the sovereignty and ongoing stewardship of this place by Ohlone peoples through building long-term reciprocity and relationship building with tribal leaders and organizations. This evening, because I'm going to be part of the presentations and the talks, I'm going to be passing over the kind of moderation to Professor San Kwan, who is my colleague in the Department of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies. San's research interests include dance studies, Asian American studies, theories of space and kinesthesia, and interculturalism. She has a brand new book out, which is wonderful. I hope you check it out. It's called Love Dances, Loss and Mourning in Intercultural Collaboration by the Oxford University Press. So I'm going to pass it over to San Kwan now, and we'll get going with presentations first by Wymore Disappearing Acts after that.
Hey everyone, welcome this evening. I'm really excited to be here tonight. It is my honor on behalf of Berkeley Arts and Design to help moderate this talk between two directing teams from two different dance companies, Kinetech Arts and Wymore Disappearing Acts. Both companies are doing really exciting and socially relevant work at the intersection between dance and technology. And both companies, incidentally, maybe not so incidentally, are setting pieces on our dance students in the Department of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies here at UC Berkeley. The performances will be February 17th to 20th, 2022. The way this is going to go, as Lisa said, is that one company will present their work first, and then the other company, and then they'll have a conversation, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. So I'm going to read the bios of the first company, Wymore first, and then when we switch over to Kinetech Arts, I'll read those bios. So let me start with Wymore Disappearing Acts. SWDA is a dance theater company led by Lisa Wymore and Sheldon Smith. Their performances are often as funny as they are physically provocative, intellectually stimulating, and deeply beautifully human. SWA works collaboratively with other dancers, actors, filmmakers, composers, technologists, designers, and media artists to develop uncompromisingly original work. Finished pieces always include a range of artistic modes as well as text and technological interventions. Their performance style draws from the postmodern tradition of dance, making work that calls for a new paradigm on the stage, an aesthetic of everyday movement that draws on a full array of movement, gesture, form, and experimentation within a rigorous practice. Disappearing Acts has won numerous awards, including Best Interdisciplinary Performance and Best Use of Technology at the Chicago PAC Edge Festival. They were nominated for 2 Isadora Duncan Awards, which are some San Francisco dance awards, for Best Choreography and also for Best Design. Their work has been presented and hosted by numerous national and international festivals, including the Chicago Museum of Contemporary Art, the Dublin Fringe Festival, the Minneapolis Spark Festival, the Arrogale Arts Festival, the Context Symposium in Zurich, and the MoCo International Conference on Movement and Computing at Goldsmiths University in London. The artistic directors are Lisa Wymore and Sheldon Smith. So Lisa has an MFA in dance from the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, where she was awarded a Creative and Performing Arts Fellowship, an Outstanding Achievement Award, and a Mo Family Award for her creativity. She was a faculty member within the Northwestern University Dance Program from 2000 to 2004. She is now full professor at the University of California, Berkeley in the Department of Theater, Dance, and Performance Studies. She teaches classes in choreography, dance technique, pedagogy, improvisation, performance, and collaborative innovation. Wymore started a multidisciplinary product called the Resonance Project in 2005, which has since evolved into the Z Lab at UC Berkeley, which is a site for interactive real-time collaboration. The Z Lab involves choreographers, computer engineers, and visual and sound artists who are investigating interactivity within live and media-based performance. Lisa's co-artistic director is Sheldon Smith, who is an artist and educator currently living in San Francisco. He was born and raised in Omaha, Nebraska, where he trained for many years in ballet and French horn, and then went on to be the first ever dance major at Colorado College. It was there, after several transformative courses on dance and electronic music, that his interests radically shifted to experimentalism and technology. He went on to receive an MFA in dance at the University of Chicago Champaign-Urbana, where he wrote a thesis, pre-internet, speculating on an emerging form of dance that would radically innovate through swiftly evolving technologies. For almost 20 years, he made highly regarded work in Chicago as part of that city's experimental dance and performance community. He danced professionally with many independent choreographers and companies and supported himself as a theater technician and stage rigging supervisor. He was also a founding member of several significant performance festivals, including Equal Footing, Earring, and The Movable Beast. In 2004, he moved with his wife and artistic partner, Lisa Wymore, to Berkeley, where they continue to create work for Wymore Disappearing Acts. Currently, he's chair of the Department of Dance and Theater Studies at Mills College, where he has been a full-time adjunct professor since 2008. While he has taught almost every course offered in the department, his main passion is around teaching performing arts students how to contextualize, theorize, and apply technology towards creative and innovative outcomes. Welcome to Lisa and Sheldon, and take it away.
Thanks, Ansan. I am going to share our screen. Sheldon and I are in our house together, but I'm going to be sharing. We're in separate rooms. Let me bring that up. So let me just move this. Okay, so Wymore Disappearing Acts. We started our company in around 2002. And it was in Chicago. We were working together. There's a very large experimental dance scene going on and theater scene, and we were very active members of that world. And yeah, Sheldon, do you want to say a little something about the start of the company?
I'm not really sure what to say. I think it took us a couple of years after we met before we decided we were going to start collaborating.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, do you want to go to the first work and we can start talking about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe just a little moment about, yeah, I guess maybe we'll dive into the works. And
we've gone over this stuff.
We've gone over this, okay, in our introduction. So here are just some themes that we're going to talk about as we discuss our work. As you know, when we first started making work together in 2002, it was the first time that editing on the computer with video was really coming into being in an affordable way. And so we had some early mini DV cameras and started our own kind of business doing video. And so video became a really huge theme in our work. And that evolved into some of these other ideas around the computer as collaborator, co-creator, and we'll be talking about these themes throughout. And then how randomness informs our creative choices, feedback systems and loops, video mapping and layering. We've gotten into a lot of live streaming in recent years, sensors and embodied triggers, shared virtual meeting places, which I did a lot of work with an engineer here in robotics at Berkeley, Rujana Baichi, around that. And then human and machine interfaces and connections are some of the major themes we'll be talking about as we move through. So one of our early works that we did was called Our Big Looper. And Sheldon, do you want to talk a little bit about this and your interest in that?
Yeah, we were invited to do a performance project at the Museum of Contemporary Art as a part of a festival, and decided to do a kind of somewhat durational gallery piece in which we would investigate what would happen if a system was recording us constantly and then playing us back, and then we would dance with the layers of our playback over time. But back in 2002, this was before we had a lot of good control over being able to record through video and play back by using a computer. We get to that, several years later, but before we could do that, we actually did all this on VHS tape, which was kind of interesting because we would record maybe 5 minutes on VHS tape, and we had several VCRs. So you take out that first one, put it on the next VCR, that would start to play back and project onto the wall what we just did. And then we'd perform with that improvisation. And then that next one would come out and they just kind of keep going down the line. It definitely initiated an interest for us about the way in which the way in which media could really shift our sense of time, especially. And to be able to, especially in dance, which is such an incredibly live art form, it's always disappearing in front of your eyes, to be able to use technology to be able to sort of capture some things that maybe you've just seen and then be able to play them back. That's one part of it, but to be able to play it back and then be able to relate to it in a performative sense in real time actually becomes a theme in actually several of the pieces that we're going to talk about today. Yeah. So maybe we'll refer back to this piece as we go on.
Yeah, it was fun to perform. You can't quite see it in the images, but it would be ourselves dancing with ourselves, which is a common theme that has occurred, as Sheldon has said. But this was, our first foray into that, and just really simple setup. We've always been kind of interested in technology that's not, that's accessible, that's off the shelf, very user-friendly. I'm going to talk now about another early work that we did. This was one of our pretty big piece that we did because it involved driving across the country, and we were we were reading these Zane Grey novels and about the exploration of the Colorado River. And Sheldon had gone to school at the University of Colorado, and just as we drove across the Midwest and stopping at various sites and places, we were filming ourselves in abandoned mines and kind of cabins and things that were dilapidated. And we were really interested in this notion of bringing them back, kind of using video as a way to tell a story, but also again to layer it with our live selves, with our past selves. And so it became a really interesting interplay with that, how to engage as if we were in the same space and time together, but we weren't. So we did a lot of play with that, setting choreography in the sites that we were traveling to, and then redoing them as if it was a duet made in that moment, in the live performance. And we also, it doesn't show this in the capture it in the photography, but we had kind of a big box that we created that resembled a space that we found out in the desert, an abandoned kind of structure. And so we replicated that in the space as well, with these layers of sheer fabric that worked as a projection surface to play with this kind of layering and these valences of what is real, what is past, what is future, what is now, kind of playing with time, was a big theme in this work. Which is so interesting. When I came to Berkeley, this is in 2009, that I did this piece with Renata Shepard, who also went to the University of Illinois, but at a different time than me. So this will play with bodies in different spaces, as we did in the dryland piece, but this is a piece that we did using kind of a portable teleimmersion system. And now with Zoom, we're used to being in real time with each other with video, and meeting, excuse me, in the virtual meeting place, as we call this space that we're in right now. But back in 2009, that wasn't the case. And Rujana Baichi from Electrical Engineering and Computer Science set up this incredible array in this kind of, also in a structure similar to that we use in dryland, this square, this cube with like 48 different camera arrays, picking up three-dimensional images. We created a portable version that is, I'll show you in a second with this video, but the images that were captured in the teleimmersion systems were then blended together into one virtual meeting place. And the idea was that researchers could work collaboratively together in three-dimensional spaces rather than these just kind of 2D or these kind of squares we work in now. This was a much more complex kind of array of visual images put together. So I'll just share some of this there. And fast forward a little bit. This is just talking about how the system works. So I'm in one side of the space, but we did this work across long distances as well. This is just a portable system that we did in my Z lab back in 2009. And Renata is another part of the space, but you can see that the image on that small portable screen is both of us being merged together in the virtual meeting place. So it takes a lot of calibration of the cameras, get the right alignment, and then you're dancing by yourself, but the image puts us together. And there's a lot of kind of noise in the system, but it was doing a lot of processing even before Kinect cameras were being utilized regularly for this type of capturing of the three-dimensional body. But so it was really fun to play with and create this work as a collaboration with Illusion of Lab. But it just is an example of us working, with different layering of video and live streaming, the live collaborative elements here, and the improvisation in the system itself as an extension of the work we've been doing for a long time. So I'll just move on to another piece that Sheldon's going to talk about. Whoops, hang on one second. There we go. This is also another kind of approximation of teleimmersion in a way, but involving Sheldon, if you want to explain what's that we were using. This is when we were exploring with the camera, the Kinect camera.
Before we go on to this, just to talk briefly a little bit more about what Lisa was just getting into, it might be a little bit challenging to fully grasp what was going on technologically, but this system that those dancers were in is really capturing them, trying to recreate them in 3 dimensions,
right,
such that they could actually wrap their arms around each other in virtual space. And
also you could move, your view could be moved all the way around as opposed to just a frontal view.
Right. And so that's a significant difference between what is going on for us in this virtual meeting space, where we're just coming together in 2 dimensions and layer on top of each other with depth.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that technology that was being used then involved an incredible amount of computing power and optics and things. And now all of that is just boiled down into these little sensors that are inside of our iPhones. And it's interesting to me that virtual meeting spaces haven't put more effort into actually getting into these depth sensing cameras that we all have in our phones now, because I would imagine Zoom is going to eventually become more sort of 3-dimensional. Anyway, so it's interesting to look at our
I would hope that
work.
It would.
It's interesting to look at our work over time, because there's clearly some repeating themes of layering recorded or sort of live recorded media with actual dancing live performers. In this case, this particular piece was created to investigate a couple of different pieces of technology, one of which is the Kinect camera, which is also a kind of depth sensing system, such that as you move your body around in space, it's tracking various parts of your body and can use that tracking as data to control whatever you want to control, which could be very, very, very complicated if you want to, because there's a lot of different points on the body that could be tracked simultaneously. So we were curious, is there some way that as a dancer moves through a space and is being tracked by the system, can you use that tracking data to then control and do things with media? And so in this piece, I'm moving around and generating sound as I move. Basically, all the sound is being composed by my body, in a sense, in real time. But then there's also a choreography between my body and video images. And all of the video images are responding in real time to my movement as well, with the idea that we were going to try to create a duet, a very live, the sense of a live duet between a pre-recorded mover and a live mover, such that you'll see if the live mover moves towards the pre-recorded body, it might back up away from them or whatever. Anyway, Lisa, if you want to play a little bit of that. And we'll probably fast forward around in this as well.
This is the sound control. So when Sheldon moves forward, yeah, it moves the video forward or backwards. His relationship is based. A lot of people thought it was a pre-recorded, that he choreographed himself to a video, but his movements impact the video.
What became an interesting challenge in creating this was just trying to think about the choreography of these elements and how one could work with these interactive systems in a way that actually was kind of fully composed and thought through. And we spent an enormous amount of time building all of this. And really only ever got to perform it once.
Yeah.
And as Lisa was just saying, you don't know what you have until you put it in front of an audience. And we put that in front of an audience, and I don't think they much cared for it, which is true of a lot of our work probably, but partly because they couldn't really understand what the interactive part is, which brings up a lot of questions within our art form. What is it to watch a performer interact with technology versus being someone who can get up yourself and interact with the technology? So what is it to watch somebody play a video game versus actually getting to play the video game? And that's a repeated question for us, and I think we continue to investigate that. Maybe we can come back to that question later on in the question and answer period. And then this next piece, do you want me to talk about this one?
Yeah, and I think this is a great example of how we shifted into the computer becoming our collaborator.
Sure. Yeah. So we've definitely had an ongoing interest ever since we started working with this software called Isadora, which is it's kind of a media manipulation software invented by a wonderful guy named Mark Caniglio. Boy, he's actually started that software over 20 years ago, and I started working with it almost 20 years ago myself, maybe 18 years ago. Anyway, ever since I started working with that, just really got interested in the idea of to what degree can the computer itself make certain kinds of aesthetic decisions, or maybe not aesthetic decisions, but decisions that lead to a kind of aesthetic result. And in this particular piece, this is actually just a video installation in which the computer is continuously rearranging 250 very short video clips into what becomes what appears to be an ongoing continuous dance that never ends and is always reshaping itself. And sometimes we're in unison doing the same thing, but then sometimes we're not, and it's unpredictable as to how the computer will organize that information. So it also becomes an interesting kind of duet where sometimes the duet will just sort of take off on its own interesting variations on the patterns and so on. So in a way, it's thinking of, can you use the computer and video to actually create a sense of liveness through the technology if a performer isn't even present at all? And this particular piece actually was also responding to when visitors would visit the museum and walk into the space, it would sort of start to move faster and then would kind of dance if someone was watching. And if you left, the dancers would slow down and kind of go into hibernation a little bit, take a rest, I guess.
Yeah, this is as we began to think too, as the computer challenging us beyond what we would normally have arranged, and then the endlessness of it, that it continues on forever in a sequencing loop, just one movement after the other, and kind of never, I mean, I guess it might not repeat for quite some time if you looked at the mathematics of that. I'm being aware of our time. I'm going to move us to the next one. Some people are asking to go bigger on the video, but We can share links to all these videos too. If we tried doing that, testing it out, but it's very hard. It loses some of the quality for some reason. So I apologize for the smallness of the video, but we have, these are all on our website and we can share links to them. So then this piece called Zero Return was a continuation of our work, thinking about the computer as a co-creator, a choreographer on its own terms. And so this was created by Ian Heisters, who is a great new media artist who helped build this system using a series of commands and different sonic elements that were picked through, that were run through various randomizers and set for different sequences of time. And each time we performed it, the computation of it and the way the algorithms functioned, it was different each performance. So it would calls you into the space or out of the space. It tells you to begin something, to remember something when it says 0, and when you return to where you started remembering, and then it tells you to go. And so it tells you these patterns to follow about your memory of what you're doing within the improvisation itself. So it was a very challenging and fun piece to perform. I'll just play and then we can talk a little bit more about that, how this unfolds. See if I have the sound up on this. Oh, shoot.
You have to unmute the sound.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, honey. Okay.
Lisa, enter.
It's telling us to enter or leave. Continue means to continue on with the improvisation that we're doing. 0 means start remembering what we're doing.
Paling, go away.
Return means go back to where it said 0. So you have to remember in this improvisation with this group. And then it tells you to go.
Go.
So it's a great kind of test to remember
Paling, enter.
what is happening within the improvisation itself.
Return.
So the return is back to the original 0. So you can see we didn't quite get there.
Go.
Now we try and repeat what we did. We have to go back.
Return. Go.
So this whole piece became kind of this interplay
Return.
with the computer, with our own making of dance in the moment.
Sheldon, go away. Go.
See if it gets confusing. Okay, continue now. We continue the improvisation. And then a new 0 would begin. So it could change in any performance. It could look very, very different. In how it sometimes you'd have a solo for 5 minutes. Sometimes there'd be the whole group. So it was really, it's a fun and challenging piece too. Again, the audience isn't, because they're not experiencing it, it can be challenging for them to understand the interactivity with the computer, how to kind of sense that the computer is doing this in the moment with us. It just seems like we've practiced something and are sharing it with the audience because they're only going to come to it once. So that's a theme that's come in our work that Sheldon talked about with the other piece we shared. So do you want to talk about 6 degrees?
Sure. Our work ranges from very small pieces that are just Lisa and myself. We've made work that like evening length pieces that basically took place in a tiny little office space for maybe 5 or 6 audience members at a time, all the way up to, more conventional theatrical pieces with sets and lighting and wonderful performers. And so one of our more recent evening length works is this one called 6 Degrees of Freedom. And the premise for this work originally was just to think about artificial intelligence and the kinds of ways in which people were really starting to explore the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence to generate, say, texts or generate poetry, or even in some cases to generate, say, film scripts or books. And spent a lot of time investigating that, and ultimately came up with the notion of, well, we could hire technologists to help us use artificial intelligence to come up with choreography, but maybe there's a twist to this where we just create the piece imagining what artificial intelligence might do if given the instruction to just try to, as best it could, figure out how to make contemporary dance out of a series of other dances that were sort of input into that system, which is a bit of a convoluted idea, but it allowed us some really interesting possibilities of investigating the use of text, the use of video, the use of set design, and so forth, in some ways that were actually quite freeing. And so in this case, what you end up seeing is not like wildly experimental. It encapsulates a lot of our interests, but puts it forward in a way that actually is, I don't know, I like to think of it as accessible. It was a very fun and very funny piece. If you just look at
Sure. I just want to quickly interject too. It was kind of like that Marshall McLuhan idea that the medium is the message. So we were playing with that, like that artificial intelligence and, text generation, all this new kind of ways in which things are being created in the world now. That is kind of the message, the way in which we engage with our technology. And so we were trying to replicate that or engage with that idea, short snippets and the ways in which the technology makes us interact in the world. So I'll just show part of this. This first scene it's a little bit out of order from how the show started, but the two dancers are just showing kind of the intimacy. They're very separate from each other, but how intimate our technologies can be and how powerful the visual image is.
So they're using their iPhone. Their iPhones are real-time.
iPhones are this is live streaming that we do a lot in our work. There's some more live streaming, interacting with the phone. And we were doing some play with YouTube influencers. And we need to leave time for Kinetech, so this is our last slide. There's a lot of text that we use. It's hard to describe all of this in a short period. This last part is us playing here. This is playing with the notion of disappearance and the live and the virtual. So you see Sheldon really isn't there. I'm live streaming, and that's a pre-recorded image, a video of Sheldon. So we're playing with, again, presence, not present, a sense of loneliness, togetherness, that technology can make us feel. So I think I'm going to stop sharing now and invite Sansa now to introduce Kinetech, because that's what we shared with, have prepared to share with you all. Of course, we'll talk more about our work with Wei and Dai as well. So I'll pass it over to Sansa. And Sheldon, just if you can put your video off.
Hey again, thanks Lisa and Sheldon so much. Really illuminating to see the range of your work over time. Okay, we move now to Kinetech Arts. Founded in 2013 and directed by choreographer Daiane Lopes da Silva and scientist Weidong. Kinetech Arts combines the work of dancers, scientists, and digital artists to create innovative performances at the intersections of movement, science, and technology. At Kinetech Arts, the artists are drawn into non-deterministic devices that create environments for new discoveries and playful explorations. Each year, Kinetech Arts produces multiple performances and over 50 other public events, including open labs, Y Exchange public talks, and dance hack festivals. To introduce the two co-artistic directors, Daiane Lopes da Silva is a dancer, choreographer, educator, and artistic director of Kinetech Arts, where she explores the intersection of dance, science, and technology. Since 2013, she has created over 10 full-length performances, which have been performed in South America, Europe, and the United States. Her residencies include Headland Center for the Arts, Combustible at Counterpulse, Jurasi Resident Artist Program, ODC Theater, and participation at Dancing Lab, Immersive Media through Cunningham at NCC Akron. Her commissions include Robert Moses's Kin, Dance Brigade, Western Ballet, West Bay Opera, and others. She has studied at the Municipal Ballet of Sao Paulo, Brazil, and at Parts, P-A-R-T-S, directed by Anne-Theresa de Keersmacher in Brussels. Daiane was a guest artist at SSU and University of San Francisco, and is currently a faculty member of Alonzo King Lyons Ballet Dance Center and Western Ballet. She graduated with a BA in psychology from San Francisco State University. Her co-artistic director is Weidong Yang. He is the co-founder and director of Kinetech Arts. He also founded Kineviz, which creates visual analytics solutions for addressing complex data problems. He received his PhD in physics and a master's in computer science. Weidong Yang has collaborated and created many performances and installations and has performed with various dance companies, including Kunststoff, Paco Gomes, and Sarah Shelton Mann. He was resident artist at the Jurasi Resident Artist Program at Safe House Arts and ODC Theater. Yang has over 10 US patents and over 20 peer-reviewed publications. So welcome, Wei and Dai.
Thank you, Sansan. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. And oh, there you go.
Thank you, Sansan. And thank you, Lisa and Sheldon, for having us here. I'm so delighted. And thank you so much for sharing your work. I have lots of questions and I want to talk a lot to you about all of those things. Okay, so let's get started. So we started Kinetech Arts in 2013. First with our open labs. At that time, we were at Safe House Arts, in the basement of Safe House Arts, when it was still at the Burger King. You remember? It smelled like French fries. We were down there, like doing lots of experiments. And here's some, wait, can you go back? I just want to show some photos of us. Here's some photos of our performances with a few things that we've used in the past, like electrocardiogram and motion capture. Also giant bubbles and cancer masks with flashlights. We'll move on to the next slide, Wait, please. And the open lab is very, very special for us because it's a place for us to brainstorm. And when we started Kinetech Arts in 2013, the scientists were there, people working with technology, dancers, and we had no idea what people were talking, what we are talking to each other. We were speaking different languages. They were talking about pythons. We were all confused, thinking they were talking about snakes. And it was a crazy mess. And I told Weidong, I'm not sure if this is gonna work out. He says, patience, we'll make it work. And so we open lab, it's just really fun. People come together and share their research and share the work that they're doing. We do dance scores. We talk about technology. We talk about things that are happening in the moment in the modern society. And it's just really playful and fun. We don't have any it's not a place for, it's not goal oriented. So it's really just a place to play with each other. It's very playful and just brainstorming ideas. Next slide, please. And we have many different community events that we organize. One of them is a dance hack. This event, we created it in 2014. And in 2016, I believe, we entered a partnership with Counterpose. So this is also, it's kind of a lab, but it's also, it's a weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Imagine 40 dancers, 40 engineers, scientists, people working with technology, working together during the whole weekend. They don't know each other. They show up, the event is free. There are many workshops happening. Actually, Lisa and Sheldon taught a workshop a couple of years before the pandemic, and it was really fun. And they come together, they very fast, they get into groups and they create their teams and they create a prototype. And on Sunday in the evening, there is a show. They show up and they show whatever they came up with. It's a mess, it's fun, it's raw, it's exploratory, and we have lots of fun with Kinetech, with Dance Hack. Next slide, please. And another event we organize is called Y Exchange, and we do that in partnership with ODC and Jurassic Resident Artist Program. And the Y Exchange is like this event right now. We invite two artists, or one artist and one scientist, people working with technology, to talk about their work. They have 25 minutes to share their work with our community, and then there's a Q&A. This is a very, very special event for us because we learned a lot from the artists, the people from, especially now during the pandemic, we got to feature artists from all over the world, and it's being very, very informative and really beautiful. The next slide, Wei.
Yeah, I like to just add a couple of things in the Y Exchange. One of the things we really, like Dai said earlier, that in the early days of Kinetech Arts in the lab, when we bring the people from technology side, people from art side, everybody speaks English, but nobody can understand each other. And so, but over the time, there's so many interesting things happens. There's interesting knowledge, the people inspire each other. So in Y Exchange, we purposely trying to kind of stretch this two-dimensional things, like bring somebody from science technology side and bring another person from artistic side, and have the conversation. They present their research, their thoughts, and afterwards the audience usually do not want to leave. So it's very fascinating. Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Well, that's because you always ask the first question. As people are frozen, they don't want to ask question, and then we don't ask the first question, and then everybody is asking question. Nobody wants to leave.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about the works that we did during the pandemic. These are, of course, our most recent works. Is very exploratory, and it's being, as you know, it's been very, very, very difficult time. Lots of struggles, just really difficult. And but you know, Wei and I, we were, okay, what should we do? Should we take a break? Should we just rest now? Because we are always working. We're workaholic. We work all the time. And we actually did a big show at ODC like 2 weeks before everything shut off. So we were very, very tired. But still, after 2 weeks, we were like, no, we got to do something. There is an opportunity to do something we never done before. We didn't know what was this thing that we were going to do, but we were kind of excited to have this constraint of the pandemic, not having a space, not being able to meet other people. So as soon as we got our vaccines, we went on a road trip to Utah, to the Salt Flat, this beautiful place here. You see this photo. If you have been there, you know what I'm talking about. It's just this vast, immense, beautiful, pristine white space. It's like infinite. You look out and you just see infinity. It's just really inspiring, really beautiful. So we went there with a few dancers and a few musicians, and it was really fun, but also really harsh. It was June, and it was hot and windy, and we brought our like a big metal plate to put it on the middle of the space, and it only lasts for 2 minutes. It went down. We couldn't use it. We were like, okay, what are we gonna do now? We had a plan, but then we had to let go of the plan, and I think it fitted a little bit this, the pandemic life of you can't control it. It is what it is. Like you have to follow the flow. And so we did some video shooting there with improvisational scores. Doa is here on the corner. She's there. You can't see much, but she has a device. It's a body harp. It's a device that she created herself. She's a graduate from Karma. And Patricia Lisandrini, also professor of Karma from Stanford, was there with us. Wait, do you want to add something to this?
Yeah, so we learned a lot from this trip, collect material, collect ideas, and came back home and start developing our show that was in ODC just a couple weeks ago, actually. And the show can actually incorporate a lot of ideas that we developed and the practice we developed over this strange and difficult time. So maybe we should move on to the next slides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm kind of moving fast because we have so many slides. Like they have a tendency of like fasting forward like crazy. So if I speak too fast or not explaining things, just help me out.
Yes.
One of the pieces that we did during the pandemic was a piece called Nobody. And this is a solo. And we finally started playing with the green screen, which we did a little bit during before the pandemic, but somehow didn't really take off. So we were, okay, let's buy green screen and let's do something at home. Our living room is this big, so small. We made the theater at home. We put the green screen there, start just experimenting, trying different things. And we came up with a solo, and this is an exploration on artificial intelligence, which we have done before in another piece, but now in a different way, but now with the green screen. And what you see here is the silhouette of my body. And the face inside is a computer generated face, or is a fake face. It was very challenging, but I had to like communicate with Weidong how to do things. And with the green screen, there's so many possibilities. There's so many things you can do. It was very difficult to find something that was coherent and that was communicating what we wanted to communicate.
I can.
That was, yeah, Wei, you go ahead.
Yeah, I can add a couple of things. So Lisa and Sheldon, earlier you guys talk about last couple of years before the pandemic, you have been thinking about AI, you researching AI in your work. We somehow went along the similar trajectory, and we really question how is AI gonna change our identity, especially shift our relationship with each other, not just our relationship with the machine, with the AI, but also the relationship with each other. So this work has I don't really think we were able to explore everything we want to explore, but really it's effort of us to explore along that direction. And in this particular image, still image you see is actually the behind the silhouette is a face, the animated face sequence that fully generated by deep learning, by AI. And so in this performance early on, you can see Daiane as a person, and at some point, and a human shape became a container for a AI generated contents. So that was really we have a lot of ideas, thoughts, but we really don't have much answer. along that direction. Shall we go on to the next slides?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So this is that performance. We did it from the living room, but we also did it at ODC because you know, we were thinking, what if we put the green screen on stage? Is it gonna be silly? Is it gonna be interesting? And then we were like, let's just try it out. You know, let's do it. Let's see what happens. And so we brought the blue screen. I will keep on saying green screen because I'm used to green screen. We use blue because I like blue better. The green screen color is awful. And so we brought it to Studio B at ODC. And so that, because also people, they saw the performance online and they were always asking, how did you do that? Because you can do so much magic with the green screen, right? And so we thought, oh, let's just put it out there. Let's just show them how we do it. And so people could see the process and the product at the same time. And that was a fun experiment. And another piece that we did during the pandemic was a piece called Artists Are Not Present. This piece is co-created with Irene Shaw. She's a dancer, visual artist. She actually lives in Chicago right now. She used to live in San Francisco and we danced together for a long time. Anyways, we wanted to do something together for a long time because she left, but we could never do something together. So now it was an opportunity. We called Irene and we said, let's do a duet together. We sent her a green screen and we started exploring this duet. We tried many different things, didn't know what the heck we were doing. And suddenly we came up with this duet where we decided we would not look at each other. Because Irene and I have very strong connection. So we came up with a score and we would sit on a chair. I sit on a chair, she sit on another chair, we face each other, but we do not look at the screen. So we never know what we make. Sometimes it's really boring and sometimes it's really fun. And every time we do a rehearsal from home, we run to the computer and say, what happened? So that was the fun part. And it was interesting. Just think about choreography, how sometimes we spend so much time choreographing things. You do this, I do that, and I try to find a connection with each other. But really, what happens in this duet is that people that watch it, they make up their own story because the brain is always trying to make connections. And even when it's boring, I think it's kind of interesting. Wait, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think you said it all. It's just really fascinating how much we make up the story in our mind. And okay, I think we have to move a little bit faster, Dai.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we talked about the pandemic pieces, and now we talk about science and technology and performance. You've seen this photo before with some of our visuals of our past works. Wait, next slide.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the AI Sensorium. It's a piece we did 2019, right before the pandemic happened. And we were still resident artists at ODC. This is also a piece investigating artificial intelligence. And in this piece, we had three acts. Privacy was act number one. That was a solo. There were lots of ideas about digital footprint, nostalgia. Don't remember much, to be honest, but it was more about digital footprint. And the second act was echo chamber. We used a giant bubble. I think you saw the photo right before that, where we had a dancer inside of this bubble and representing this idea that we are living this curated world in social media, right? The algorithm is always sending you information about things that you like, things that it knows you're going to click, people with the same shared beliefs. So we live in this bubble where we only interacting with people that agree with us. They're doing the same things than us, and we're not exposed to other ways of thinking. The third act was, we were thinking a lot about how we nowadays worship technology. And we use, in this picture, you can see we used a electromyograph on the dancer's bodies. And as he contracted his muscles, it created sound. This sound was connected to a huge metal plate. It was connected wireless with the shaker behind the metal plate. So every time he moved, contracted his muscles, it vibrated the metal plate and it created sound. And maybe I'll pass it on to you for you to explain how you did that with Patricia and Michael.
Yeah, so this is really a piece we examine how the relationship between AI and how it's affecting our relationship between AI, between human and machine and human and human. And in this particular case, those electrodes pick up the currents, like a very tiny current signal through the muscle. And Patricia, she's a professor at Kama in Stanford. So she helped us to clean the signal up, enhance it, and it drive to this big metal sheet, which made by Michael Coley. She's an artist at Pier 9 and Autodesk. And so it creates a vibrating sound. I think it's better just show you a little bit of video. We can see, you can see it. Can you hear the sound? So she's contracting her muscle and creating the sound. That mirror is actually the sound device. It's a giant metal piece. We have 3 metal panels. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Dai,
Oh,
you want to
Mesh.
talk about Mesh? Yes.
I was surprised. I wasn't expecting the slide.
Yeah.
Wow, Mesh, this is a piece we did in 2018. It was in honor of a really good friend of ours that actually, Carol Heyman. She was a dancer and choreographer, and she was really excited about Kinetech Arts, and she really pushed us forward to make things happen, to create a structure, to help us. And at that time, she was she had cancer, a terminal cancer.
Yeah.
And so she gave us these masks. They're used for cancer treatment. And she told us, if you want to make a piece with it, these are yours. And unfortunately, Carol passed away, and we did this piece for her. And in this piece, we use flashlight through the mask to create the shadow on the wall. We also used motion capture. Wait, do you have a video of the mocap?
Yeah. So I think we are running short on time, and maybe we should just move on.
Okay, we'll move on then.
Yeah,
if you guys want to do a little longer or show some of that piece, you can. It's fine.
I think people can go to our website to see the videos. I realized if we keep on going, we're gonna run way over time.
We and I always do that.
Yeah.
We want to talk about everything.
Yeah. So let's just keep on moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Markov chain. You should talk about Markov chain.
Yeah. So so this is like I think early on. I think Sheldon talked about like the technologies and the visible, invisible technology, how audience perceive. We also thinking about like, what if we have some scientific concepts like this Markov chain is happened to be predates today's neural network, deep learning in early days. The basic concepts is really if you throw a coin, get a head, what's the chance of the next throw to be head or tail? So a simple system, but you code in some like a so-called transition matrix, and it's like how once the one state can lead to the other, and that can create a very complex system. And in early days, people were using that for like handwriting recognition, for weather prediction, for many things. So we use that for, and a couple of things. One is to engage audience and to like guiding audience through a transition through a set of states. Two, we use it to experiment with the dance formation, like how can, what if it's similar to, I think Lisa, Sheldon, you guys did this like infinity dance with many snippet that transition from one to the other. So this is highly similar ideas that we use a probability matrix to design a set of states that dancer will transition from one to the other. So Daiane, do you want to talk about social environmental matters?
No, I just wanted to say something really fast about the Markov chain. That was a really fun system to play with, especially in the lab. Because in the lab with the dancers, we can come up with different states, movements, but in the lab, we have to keep things very simple so everybody can participate. And so it was very chaotic, but it was really beautiful. Like tasks such as open the doors and fall on the floor, scream, go to the bathroom, and slide on the floor. And there's just like 20 people doing these tasks, and it was hilarious.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say, Wei.
Yeah, okay. Should I talk about social environmental matters?
Yeah, just go. Maybe I can talk about climate music project. You know, there's some subjects that are really important for us too, like climate change, elections. And this 1880 to 2080 is a piece that we did with choreographer Tanya London, this woman there holding the meat, raw meat. And we did this collaboration with the Climate Music Project. So what they do is that they work with scientists and musicians to translate the data from 1880 to 2080 into music. But they wanted to also try out choreography. So Tanya and I worked with the data to translate the data into choreography. I'm not sure how well we did with this, but we tried really hard to figure out how to translate. It was a challenge because it becomes very dry for us. We're not scientists, right? So we're looking at the data and we're trying to figure out how to translate that. And if we try to be literal about it, then it becomes very, very dry. So for Tony and I, we couldn't follow the data that way. So we had some landmarks, historical landmarks, and how to use the space and objects to communicate the data. Yeah, that's what I want to say about 1880, 2080.
Yeah, it's a very interesting exploration. Richard Festinger, he's a professor at SF State. And he created a string quartet, which is played by Telegraph String Quartet here in Berkeley. A beautiful piece of string quartet, and so the data, like Daiane said, can be quite dry, and it's just data. And how do we translate data and map the data into dance? The dance works in totally different dimension. How are those things can come together was a quite fascinating challenge. Let me go to the next slides. Yes. So everybody remember 2016, right? That's the year of quite a consequence. Daiane and I were at the resident artist at the Jurassic at the time, and I was tracking the tweets in the on the social network, how the tweets and following the election, and there was something quite alarming that came up. And of course, everybody know what happened. The other thing that's also quite interesting that we observed is I grew up in China, where going through cultural revolutions and firsthand experienced how somebody's brain can be brainwashed. Like, it's interesting, like you asked me at the time, were you brainwashed? I would say, hell no, of course not. But thinking back, like everything, single thing, how I think, what I see, which angle I see, I think about things is very much impacted or like manipulated by the system. Now in 2016, we noticed something similar, and it's interesting here is there's a lot of labels being thrown around, and that has not been changed much until today. So we did a large project based on the tweets that we collected to really explore how label shifts our thought, in the sense like when we think about label, and we stop thinking, we just doing the jump into the action. So those are some of the things. I'm just gonna skip forward it is now, and let's talk a little bit about this latest project we're doing with thanks Lisa and inviting us to be part of the Berkeley Dance Project 2022. So Dai, you want to talk about this project?
We have to wrap up, so maybe we can
Yes.
bring in this conversation during the Q&A.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I just want to say it's
Yeah.
been amazing. We love the students. They're so smart. It's lots of really good conversation, and it's a very collaborative process. They're creating material. It's been really, really fun working with them. And we are very excited to see what this piece is going to look like in February.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daiane and Weidong. Really fabulous to see again the huge range and proliferation of your work. You are clearly active, busy people. So we have about 15 minutes for questions. I see that a bunch have come in already. And there's kind of a running theme across some of the questions. I thought maybe I could sort of consolidate it into sort of one general question and ask you to answer that, and then we can pick up some other questions as well. But generally speaking, there's some questions around the relationship between the ways in which you are all exploring the intersection between dance and technology as a sort of as a form of play, as an interest in form, as an exploration, and for lack of a better word, the aesthetic product that results and audience response to that aesthetic product. And so if you could talk again about how you shuttle or how you negotiate again the relationship between what you're exploring in terms of dance and technology and the aesthetics of it in the final product.
It's a good question. Those are good questions. I was just thinking the same thing, that I would have asked that after seeing our work, seeing these works shared. I mean, I think what we share with Kinetech is the spirit of exploration, experimentation, which doesn't always necessarily lend itself to a final or completed product. It's really very process oriented, and the act of being in the rehearsal, working with the technology itself becomes the act of the piece in a way, like, because that notion that the medium is changing how you make work is so exciting, and it's felt as you make the work, is hard to share with an audience because they just see the final work. But maybe Kinetech folks can talk a little bit about more of your labs and the way in which you use kind of interactivity and inviting a whole community into your process, I think was excuse me, really interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of interaction with our audience during the labs. So some of the things that go on stage, they pass through the lab, that's for sure. So people that come to the lab, they get a chance to try things out. They put the electromyograph in the body, they try the mocap, they're hands-on. In the lab, they try things out. And I think, but it's a small group of people, right? So not everybody gets to try that. And when we get a chance, sometimes after the show, the people come on stage and we show them, we go there and then they try things out. But there's definitely not enough time for everybody to try everything.
Yeah. Between Daiane and I, we actually have a very interesting dynamics typical of an artist and scientist. And I'm a geek, okay? So I'm super excited about all the technology possibilities. This can motion tracking, this look what you've done, what they can do, the video projection. And that is coming from artist. She very, very much concerned about the artistic integrity. She's like, what does it do for dance? And where does the dancer go in this? Is this overwhelming the dancer? It's like the sensory overwhelming, and the nuance in the dance expression gets overwhelmed. And so we actually, a lot of work that we're doing is more as a reduction than addition, so subtraction than addition. So very much as something come up, it's always the first time you try it is very, very interesting. Second time you try it is like, hey, wait a minute, why it was so interesting the first time? And so especially when we put the dancers interact with the system. And by the way, we like to create a system that's non-deterministic. And that creates a interaction, create a dialogue between dancer and the technology itself as well. But that system has to keep on being simplified until in the end you can create a work that actually can speak for itself.
Do we want to go on to another question, or should I say something?
You should say something. I think you have a response to this.
Well, you know, part of why we make the work we do is just because we're really interested in technology and get excited about various possibilities, but also somewhere in there is also just recognizing that as we're all working more and more with technology in our lives in different sorts of ways, that's changing our lives, and it's changing, or it's introducing new ways of being in the world and new feelings and senses in the world and intuitions and all kinds of things. And so for me anyway, to work with technology and art is to be able to like put a magnifying lens towards those relatively new human experiences that we're all confronting, and seeing if we can find a way to take that as a new kind of poetic language and forming compositions around it, so that in the theater or in the museum or wherever we can maybe all learn something about as we're sharing a kind of experience, we're learning something about what these new experiences are, even if we don't entirely understand them yet or can put them into words. I mean, Lisa and I have made a lot of work over the years where we don't necessarily know. I mean, it's hard because we have to be able to put something in language in order to get money to make our work. And yet, on some level, we're just making the work and not necessarily knowing exactly what it's about until oftentimes years later. It's not until years later that sort of, I don't know, the zeitgeist or whatever has sort of caught up to certain experiences that we were already exploring, where suddenly it becomes, oh, okay, that experience is now folded into a kind of collective consciousness or culture or whatever. And we can reflect back on how these things weave through our lives. So I don't know, partly it's incredibly mysterious, as a lot of art making and a lot of science is. but it's definitely about trying to say something about the human experience in the face of constant technological change.
And I think there's something about almost like the consciousness of these machines that we're making, you know, we try to say that it's separate, their technology is separate from ourselves, but everyone's walking around with supercomputers strapped to their body. And I mean, we live with our technology. I'm wearing a sweater and plastics, and I mean, we're technological beings. And so what is us? What is machine? What is consciousness? Is it to have a soul? What is it? I don't know. These questions really come up for me when making things with technology. I've just always been driven to it as a small child, playing with my like these big clunky video you know, camcorders that my dad had, giant battery packs, and so I was fascinated by that. And I don't know.
That makes sense, Lisa. I like that you say your glasses, because when we talk about technology, we're always thinking about the new
Digital
technology, right? But it's like, I'm wearing contact lenses, you know, you're wearing glasses. This is all technology that we've been using. Theater, you know, the lighting is technology. And so
it's imbued in us. We're reflecting back. It's a process. What is it to be the audience member watching it, engaging with it, being affected by it? Yeah, sometimes it doesn't always make sense at the time.
And that's an important part. I mean, what you're kind of both bringing up is just that artists have always been interested in technology. It's just our tools, our technologies, and we wouldn't be artists if we didn't have those tools. So our interest in technology goes back to the earliest art making ever. You realize you have a tool that you can work with, and you're like, what could this thing do? What are the possibilities for this? How is this getting at something that I couldn't otherwise do if I didn't have this particular tool? So it's partly a curiosity, except that now we're moving into a world in which, we've been in a world for quite a while in which technology is like overwhelming our lives in ways that kind of shift that conversation away from just about artists just working with their tools because they're new and they're inspiring or whatever, to really looking at how technology is shaping our
humanness
as humans.
I think
Identity.
it's really it's just accelerating, and it's changing
It's
our
extremely
very
overwhelming.
structures, our brains, how we're thinking. You know, I mean, it's like the computer is like an extension of my brain. I to look up things and remember things and use it to know the world. So it's interesting time.
So in our last 5 minutes, I'm going to maybe offer you two possibilities in terms of what you might want to answer. There's obviously a really robust set of questions happening that we're not going to get to, but I appreciate everyone's deep passion and interest in what you're hearing. So two possibilities. One is to talk about your new project with Berkeley Dance Project with the students. And the other, as an option, would be to talk about how you might see yourselves as different, how Smith Wymore might see their work as different from what Kinetech is doing.
Well, maybe if we talk about our BDP pieces, the difference might become more visible. Yeah. Do you guys want to go first? Talk about what you're doing?
That's a difficult one to talk about, I gotta be honest. I feel like at this point, there's still like different threads. There are like 3 different threads, I may say. We start the idea of entropy. The idea that time is always moving forward.
Yeah.
Maybe start with the technologies you're using.
Yeah.
No, did we
Yeah.
start with I don't even know. Wait, did we start with technology?
You know, we start with the concept of the initial concept, but we already know that we at some point it's going to touch on the pandemic, our experience from the pandemic, and then so the original idea, which is like entropy regards to like the era of time where everything in the end all gonna decay, and how the entropy also gonna surprise you because it triggers like a sudden changes. So that was then we look at the entropy as angle to look at the pandemic, how the pandemic happened and out of the blue that nobody can expect, and the things just suddenly changes overnight, nothing's the same, and how it ordered the society a well-designed, maintained system that overnight just totally dysfunctional. And how people experience each other, like once pandemic hit, how we relate to each other. We all have the mask, we can't see each other's face. Daiane and I had a difficulty remember people's name because we can't see people's face. And so that, and later on during the process, something else happened. Daiane, you want to talk about the hummingbird?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, we did not have any intention to make a piece have like the pandemic coming process, but it's still happening. So the conversation happens in the studio and you just cannot ignore it. It's just there, and so sometimes most of the time actually, we enter the space with an anchor, like an entropy, but then the conversation goes somewhere else, and this starts to become part of the project as well. And things cannot be ignored, I think. So we incorporate those things into the performance, like coming up with scores that are related to how we have changed the way that we, like the distance of our bodies, like not touching each other, or how much distance can we be with each other, like what kind of choreography this is creating by the way that we are moving through the world now. And then something happened during the rehearsal where a hummingbird came through the window, and I was like, oh my God, another distraction. Like, I gotta move on with the work. I'm like goal-oriented. And it became a thing. It became part of the process with the students very, very, very concerned about the hummingbird. The hummingbird hit the wall and fell on the ground. They had to take it out, and it was a super emotional situation happening there. And I think, like, I just stepped back and I just watched it. I was like, oh, this is happening. I mean, the piece is there. This is the piece, and it was beautiful. And and somehow, and then when you think about that, the hummingbird, the hummingbird died. The next day they checked on the hummingbird and he was dead. And it's connected so beautifully with the idea of entropy and the pandemic. And so somehow this three things, entropy, pandemic, and a hummingbird, which carries this symbol of faith and bringing something beautiful to the world. Like the hummingbird has the symbol, and I thought it was such a beautiful metaphor for anything that's happening right now. And then there is the device that way is working with the students from Mills College, and that is being really amazing exploration with them as well.
Yeah, so that device, Sheldon, earlier you talk about, like when you have motion tracking, that the audience cannot really understand or does not have direct knowledge about what's going on. Yeah, I've been trouble with that thing for a long time, and so Doa built this body hub. We played at the software. That was like, that's the moment I realized, wait a minute, I want something physical, so people can actually, the audience can actually see the directionality and the connection between the movement, the body, and the instrument. So this is the device we're going to be using in the show. So I think that would take too much.
Thank you so much. If I could just give Lisa and Sheldon 1 or 2 minutes to talk a little bit about your piece, and then we'll close us out.
Yeah, thank you guys for sharing that. We have kind of similar themes, but we're working with connection, disconnection, and control are kind of really coming up in the work. And Sheldon, maybe you want to talk about a little bit.
I mean, as we've gotten into it, it's definitely also pandemic related. It's really hard to avoid the various feelings and things that we've been through over the last year and a half. So tonally, there's a lot of things related to that. This is probably one of the more, I don't know, we've made work that has a lot of sections before, but this one is going to jump around a lot more than we might normally. We started with a lot of ideas about how to use the computer to give instructions to the performers, which is something, you know, we've explored before, but also give instructions to the audience and have a kind of relationship between the performers and the audience and the computer and video projection. But as we've been working with the students more and more, we've actually been more and more fascinated by just what they bring to the piece, and the technology itself is, I mean, we went into this knowing we were going to make something with technology, but the technology is taking more and more of a kind of back seat to the whole thing in a satisfying way. I mean, I think, you know, just the last thing I think I'll say, just to sort of leave off with, is just, even though we work with technology all the time, we're still dance artists, and the human body as an extraordinary technology in many ways can't be beat. And we could easily get rid of all of the contraptions and things in the work and still be very satisfied. But we're fascinated by technology, but we're not beholden to always having to use it either.
I don't think use it, but it's in our consciousness so deeply, and because we've been working
Affects
for
our
so many
choices
years,
even if it's not there.
yeah, it's still present, even though it might not be physically in the space. So I think for those students who want to come see, and audience members who want to come see it, I think there's going to be some interesting uses of it in the work that will be fun to
Yeah, coming back to the body seems like a nice place to close out this conversation. Thank you all so much. Really fascinating, and you've got my mind spinning. So thanks. Come see the show in February and check out the websites of both Kinetech and Smith Wymore. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.